Companies and Allied Matters Act make it easier to do business. Cama has been the phrase on a lot of lips these days. Cama, chameleon. This is the law that governs how companies and other associations operate in Nigeria. The National Assembly and the President have rewritten and passed the law in hopes that it improves the business environment. It brings us to our big hard fact today. Nigeria is ranked 131st on the World Bank's 2020 Doing Business report, but it was in the top 10 worldwide for most improved for ease of doing business. So we have a long way to go, but according to the World Bank, we are making progress faster than the rest of the world. And here in Nigeria, the government has set a goal. The goal is to get us into the top 100 for ease of doing business. And that's part of the reason the Cama was passed. Today, what I want us to do is break down the provisions of the Cama so that you can decide whether or not it will help us reach that goal. We're hoping that the people who set and announced the goal of getting us to the top 100 will actually join us on the show. We're waiting for her to connect on the show. I'm talking about the special advisor to President Buhari on ease of doing business. She's also the secretary of PEBEC. PEBEC is the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. Her name is Dr. Jumoke Oduole, and she's just joined us now via Zoom. You can actually watch this interview on Facebook. Facebook is Nigeria Info 99.3. You can also watch via YouTube. YouTube is Nigeria Info FM. Dr. Oduole, are you there? Can you hear me? Hello, Dr. Oduole.
Right. Oh, sorry about that. Gosh, my boss was like asking, and I actually was on my feet trying to, exit the door, but
Okay, welcome. All right, you're live on the show.
Oh wow!
Yes,
I didn't just say that live, did I?
You just did. You just said that live.
Okay, everybody. Yes, I'm at work, but I had to rush just for you.
All right, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Let's start with what PEBEC does. What does PEBEC do, and how do you do it?
So, wow. In very short summary, we remove bureaucratic bottlenecks for small and medium-sized enterprises. So we work on regulatory reforms, legislative reforms. And how do we do that? We work with particular ministries, departments, and agencies in government, in the federal government. We also work with state governments and with National Assembly, judiciary, and private sector. So it's quite a wide project. But the idea is to make sure that it's easier to do business. And by easier, we want to reduce the cost of doing business.
Okay.
We want to make it faster to do business.
Okay.
And we want things to be more transparent.
Now, before we get into Cama itself, let's talk about ease of doing business generally, right? Based on your work, what would you say that the major obstacles to doing business in Nigeria are?
Well, so if I take the feedback from private sector, there are two sides to it. So there's the hard infrastructure. So you talk about power, you talk about movement of goods and services, rail, broadband. And then you have the soft infrastructure, the amount of time, the people this use, the processes, and infrastructure. So those are the three things. So businesses talk about the cost of doing business. They talk about taxes quite a bit. They talk about hard infrastructure most. They talk about power. They talk about seaports, standards, NAFDAC, SON, the number of regulatory hurdles they have to encounter. So a lot of pain points. We try to listen very closely to where the shoe is pinching small and medium-sized enterprises, and then we go from there.
All right, if you just joined the show, welcome. You're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Like I said, you can watch on Facebook. We're streaming live, Nigeria Info 99.3. You can also watch on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. And if for some reason you cannot stay until the end of the interview, Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili is available as a podcast, so you can listen afterwards. I have on the show with me the special advisor to the President, Buhari, on ease of doing business. She's also the secretary of PEBEC, and PEBEC is the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. Her name is Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. Dr. Oduwole, let's talk about Cama itself, right? So first of all, let's look at some of the new provisions regarding starting a business. One of the most interesting provisions of the new act is that it now allows for the registration of a company with a single owner. What are the advantages of this from PEBEC's viewpoint?
So it's really where, like I told you, we take our feedback from private sector. So there's some jurisdictions around the world that have already done this. And of course, you know that Nigerians are really entrepreneurial. And sometimes the whole partnership thing, the whole having a lot of shareholders. So businesses are constantly trying to, okay, let me put my children, let me put my spouse. And you know what? The market is ripe for single shareholder companies. So we really pushed hard for that reform, and we were happy that we were able to deliver it for the Nigerian people.
Some observers have said that they are worried that allowing single owner registrations will mean the system will get flooded with registrations, including from one-man business types, many of whom will not be very serious. What do you say to that?
We don't mind at all. You see, the more you increase the pie, and then you have a pool of success coming out of, so the bigger the pie, the bigger the pot, it's better for us. So out of those, if you have a smaller size pot, then the number of successes, we want more Dangotes, we want bigger companies coming out of Nigeria. It all starts from starting a business. The more, these are known statistics globally, the more companies start a business, the more successful, it's just statistics really. The more you have, then the more success stories you can have out of that. So we're not, and of course it increases formality. It takes a lot of businesses out of the informal sector into the formal sector, and all the sort of the credit system, the tax system, a lot of good things for the structure of our economy.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Section 863 of the law. It says a person cannot carry on business as a company or a partnership or with a business name without registering under the Act. And if they do, they will be fined. They can be fined. Now, a lot of Lagosians who have sent in questions want to know, how does this affect the woman who's selling tomatoes on my street? Does she have to register with the CAC now? What's the litmus test?
So, to be honest, there's a threshold. These are provisions that apply to the formal sector, people that have bank accounts, people that are, when there's systemic intervention that applies to you, you're applying for permits, you're applying for you're opening bank accounts, you're going to be doing business with a formal sector, like, businesses like you are, also incorporated businesses, to ensure a level playing field. It doesn't apply to the very micro level of our economy. There's really just no way. That's when you say that a lot of developing countries, including Nigeria, have a very high informal sector, upwards of 70%, and you don't have those kinds of figures in other more developed climates. So we're trying to make sure that we reduce the informality, and we make sure that we have a more structured economy, because there are benefits that come with that, as opposed to letting. So the more businesses are structured, the more they can access capital, the more they can have better services from government offices, the more they can have upskill, and then they employ more people. So that it's a virtuous cycle. So that's why incorporation is important. Yes.
Now, beyond the tomato seller, even among the more stable SMEs, you have lots of people who are doing business without registering with the CAC. You have hundreds of thousands of them, or even maybe millions. Most of them haven't registered with the CAC for various reasons. Some of them don't want to because they're dodging the tax net. But some of them simply don't know how, or they are intimidated, or they've tried and they were discouraged. Is the answer to impose a fine on them, or is the answer to develop better mechanisms for locating them and registering them?
So it's both. It's both. Fines, because there are just some companies that, like you said, they prefer to fly under the radar. And they're doing a disservice to the entire economy. There's some companies that are quite large, but they don't want to be formalized because they don't want to pay tax and they don't want to. I mean, it's the same thing with BVN. People fought it tooth and nail because they didn't want that transparency. But we need it because it's unfair for some businesses to have to be registered and to have annual returns and things like that and regulatory oversight, while some of their competitors are not registered and can go on with sharp practices that are unknown to law. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is we're very interested in simplifying things for incorporation. We've been working on this for a few years now. We made sure that registering of business names takes about 4 hours. We've taken a lot of things online, digitized processes. Company registration itself is now 24 hours. Yes, sometimes we have issues with the portal, sometimes bandwidth, depending on the state you're in around the country. But by and large, this is something that private sector have told us are working. They're very happy about. So when you have, it's much easier to start a business electronically. There used to be about 6 different paper forms when we started this in 2016. And we collapsed in 2017. We collapsed all those forms into one form and we put it online. So it's an electronic form and it's online. And it used to be 6 paper forms. So things like that. Like I said, we work on processes, we work on people issues. So the people issues will be more communication. So you have the Corporate Affairs Commission now on Twitter. You have them having a lot more stakeholder engagement. And it's not just CAC, but because we're talking about Cama here, we work with over 50 ministries, departments, and agencies, making sure that their websites are up to date. This is what Executive Order 1 speaks to, making sure their websites are up to date. They put their procedures online, their service level agreements. And then we have the other side of the mirror, which is the Report Gov portal. And that is where private sector can make their complaints or their feedback. So we're trying to make sure that the dialogue is on and the feedback is worked on promptly. So that's why I said it's both. Yeah.
Now, how enforceable is the fine? Does the CAC in particular and the government in general have the capacity and resources to trace all the SMEs doing businesses without registering?
Well, it's just like taxation. A lot of people dodge tax to your court, right? So, I mean, CAC they'll make their value, their judgment call on how they want to enforce this particular provision. I don't know what processes they would adopt. It may be that, for instance, if you want to get a government contract, if you want to have a contract from Bureau of Public Procurement, then you may need to show your registration. You definitely need to show your registration. And there's some other countries. A lot of corporates won't even deal with you if you're not a registered. Even if as an individual or a consultant, you want to do certain work, people are going to be like, "Can I have your company registration? What are your company details?" So it's also it's also to the advantage of our economy to encourage, particularly as we don't have enough jobs. So we target a lot of our interventions at young entrepreneurs. We want them to be able to have an idea at 4 a.m. And then by sort of 10 a.m., it's been registered. By the next day, you have your incorporation documents. So you can have a meeting just maybe in 24 hours and you can pitch your business idea. Or you have an idea, you had a meeting, and then you quickly go register it before somebody else moves with it. So those are the kinds of rapid moving things that we're trying to make sure are put in place for our entrepreneurs. They're vibrant, they have ideas, they're ready to go. So anytime they have an idea, we don't want to limit it. We want them to be able to run with it. So the cost of that, we're also bringing that down, and the processes to get that done. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the statement of compliance, right? Under the old act, when I registered a company, I had to get a lawyer or a notary to sign a declaration of compliance. But now, under the new act, I don't need them. I just sign my own statement of compliance. Why was this change
Yeah.
made?
So it's exactly that, to make sure that it's a lot easier for our entrepreneurs, particularly, younger entrepreneurs. And when I say younger entrepreneurs, it's not even an age thing. It's anybody. You may come out of paid employment at 60 and you have an idea. So you're a fresh baby entrepreneur. So when I say younger entrepreneurs, I mean 0 to 3 years. You just had an idea. You just started. The idea of, where do I start? I need to get a lawyer. Who on earth is a notary public? Where do I start getting all this paperwork? Who does it? And all the fees that come up, depending on how savvy you are and if you know who to talk to or how to get things done. If you can, it's now a trust thing. So the statement of compliance is government trusting private sector. You make your statement yourself as a promoter of the business. We'll take you at your word. If at a
Okay, so we're having connectivity issues there.
lawyer.
Do we have her back? Dr. Duole? Okay, all right. So while we work on restoring the connection to Dr. Jumoke Oduole, let's get some of your thoughts via WhatsApp. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. You're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. If you just joined the show, today we're talking about ease of doing business in Nigeria. Will the new Companies and Allied Matters Act make it easier to do business here? I told you when we started that Nigeria ranked 131 on the World Bank's 2020 Doing Business report, right? But was in the top 10 worldwide for most improved for ease of doing business. And that's why today we're having a conversation about some of the things that the government is trying to do to make sure that it's easier for you to do business. Now, we have a connection back to Dr. Duole. Sorry about the interruption, Dr. Duole.
Okay, no problem.
That's one of the things that we're hoping we can fix with the ease of doing business.
Yes. It's funny. I could actually hear you, so I was shocked that broadband. but really, on a serious note, these are the kinds of things that, with all the COVID, but even before that, for 2 years now, we've been working with state governments to reduce the right-of-way costs so that broadband can move around the country. Because sometimes when we go for stakeholder engagements up north, I remember at least going to Kano and them telling me that even their electronic banking transactions are slow. They can't do enough, virtually. So that's a broadband issue. And the corporates are ready to expand, but sometimes the cost of digging up the road, for good reason, because you're going to dig up the road, right, and it has to be fixed. So all those things, those are more infrastructure, like I said, but we do pay attention and we do make sure that we join the discussion and we encourage state governments and federal government. We're for you. We're actually on this side of the fence. Or we're in government for you.
Yeah.
So
okay. So
yeah.
So you mentioned before we lost the connection to you that the reason why we have the new provision that says I can just sign my own statement of compliance was so that we can reduce the need or the expense for business starters to get lawyers or notaries or things like that. You wake up in the morning, you have a business idea, you can get it done as quickly as possible. Now, how will the CAC be able to verify that all of us who are opening businesses are fully compliant without lawyers and notaries doing the work for them as intermediaries?
Now it's optional. So private sector,
oh no. Okay, all right, so now that was going so well, the network, that is, but we're going to try and have that sorted. I don't even know if it's from our end here in the studio or it's from Dr. Duole's end, but we're going to try to have that sorted. Like I said, get in touch with us via WhatsApp. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. 080-959-75805. We're still going to talk about corporate governance. It's one of the provisions of Cama. one of the provisions of Cama gives the Corporate Affairs Commission the right to remove the trustees of an NGO or a religious organization. So we're going to talk about that in a bit. Dr. Duwale, you back?
Yeah, this is really weird. I can hear you, like even when, yeah.
Yeah, but
So,
they're telling us that your network bandwidth is low. Bandwidth is low.
okay, let me go on. Do you want me to switch connections?
Yeah, maybe that will work. Maybe switch connections and see.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I mean, while we still have you here and the connection is clear, go ahead. You were telling me about how you're going to verify that all of us are fully compliant.
Yeah, so it's a trust thing. So what it is that the CAC, when there are issues, it is when something comes up that anybody would wish. So it's a trust system.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that so I'm going to join another thing now. Yeah.
Okay.
So anybody that contravenes, it is the day that 99 days for the thief, 1 day for the owner.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a good idea to put a fraudulent statement on your statement of compliance. Just say the truth, let it be as it is, because it is as a business grows, then things like this become sticky. When you're forming your business, it may be no big deal, but imagine 10 years have gone by,
Mm-hmm.
you're now highly successful, and then some little regulatory issue comes up, and it's a percentage of your profit fine or something, so it's just better to be compliant. If I were CAC, I wouldn't spend a lot of time chasing on compliance.
Mm-hmm.
I would wait till there's the opportunity that I need to vet something on your books,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would take action. So you don't want to be in that situation.
Okay. Cama also changed the requirements for what is called share capital. We've moved from authorized share capital to minimum share capital. Could you explain what the difference is and
Mm-hmm.
why this should matter to anybody who's starting a business?
Yeah, so with authorized share capital, it's just the traditional way. You have an amount of shares that you want in your company,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a particular fee that you need to pay for those shares to the Corporate Affairs Commission. Now, you may not allot, so you have authorized shares, but you don't allot all of them at the same time. Hardly anybody starts a business and allots 100% at the same time. So now the regime is moving to minimum, so you only pay for what you're allotting. So it's an opportunity to reduce cost. Yeah.
I see. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and then we're going to talk about corporate governance. In one of the provisions, Cama gives the Corporate Affairs Commission the right to remove the trustees of an NGO or a religious organization in the event of mismanagement. Now we know that this is a standard power of government. For example, the Charity Commission in the UK has this power, right? But we've seen Nigerians, including Bishop David Oyedepo, kick against it and call it an attack on religious organizations. So after the break, you're going to tell me what PEBEC thinks about that. You're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. I've got the Secretary of PEBEC on the show. PEBEC is the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. She's also the President's Special Advisor on ease of doing business. This is Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. I am Sandra Ezekwesili. Don't go away.
This is your number one station,
99.3.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
to Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili.
It's 5:32. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili. Will the new Companies and Allied Matters Act make it easier to do business? Answering that question is Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, who is the Secretary of PEBEC. PEBEC is the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. She's also the Special Advisor to President Buhari on ease of doing business. And she's joined us today from Abuja. And before the break, I did mention that one of the questions we will ask is about corporate governance. Cama gives the Corporate Affairs Commission the right to remove the trustees of an NGO or a religious organization in the event of mismanagement. Now, we know that this is a standard power of government, and I gave the example of the Charity Commission in the UK and how they have this power. But we've seen Nigerians, including Bishop David Oyedepo, kick against it and call it an attack on religious organizations and NGOs. What does PEBEC think? Dr. Oduwole? Hello, Dr. Oduwole. Okay. All right. So we're having connections problems again. Dr. Oduwole, are you there? Hello? Hello? Okay. So Abuja people cannot make mouth again for Lagos people when it comes to what's it called? Internet subscriptions or internet service, or internet subscription this time, because it looks like our networks here in Lagos are working better, work stronger than that of Abuja. But she's going to work on that and join us again for this conversation. Let's take a few of your thoughts and a few of the questions that you have about Cama 2020. 0700993 993. I think we're just going to switch gears and I'll just call Dr. Jumoke on the phone. Phone calls are usually more trustworthy than the internet, right? So let's give her a call and let's get this over with. Dr. Oduwole, thank you so much for calling in. Hello?
So let me speak another connection. It's not letting me. I've tried like 10 times.
Let's just talk on the phone. It's fine.
Now, like this?
Yeah, like this. This is okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
So thank you for asking me that question. I think that's really a question that I would like to talk to today. So this provisions on trusteeship, first of all, it's not at all religious targeted. It's nothing to do with any sort of religious affiliation. It applies to all trustee organizations, right? And it's about good governance. Like you said, other climates have moved far ahead of what we had in Nigerian law. As we're tidying up Cama, all sorts of things are tidied up, and from relics, it's been 3 decades. Now, we have seen a lot of abuses in our climate. So I'm frankly actually quite surprised that some people, and I should say a small minority of people, are kicking against the opportunity for better governance, the opportunity to make sure that businesses and even trusteeships, even NGOs, even churches are not allowed to engage in fraudulent practices. If you are compliant, why on earth would you be afraid? That's the first thing. I think only the guilty are afraid. That's the first thing. I think we should bring this out and talk about it as a tool. Like if everybody's books are in order, what would be the problem with oversight? And then the second thing is that we should look at the type of oversight. Are there enough checks and balances in the type of oversight? I've read the provisions myself, although they were not ease of doing business provisions, but I've read the provisions myself, and it talks about suspension. It talks about reasonableness. So there's a known test of what qualifies as reasonableness in legal parlance. It talks about ministerial oversight. And it talks about even members of the association, I believe 1/5 of the members of the association even being able to make a report to the Corporate Affairs Commission. And we still have the court. Now, the National Assembly passed this legislation we've been working on this legislation. People have been working on this legislation since 2004. There's been several public hearings, Sandra, several public hearings on this particular piece of legislation. But my view is that it's taken us 30 years to pass this, or to overhaul this, and it does not need to take us any sort of long time at all to start making amendments. If there's a particular group that feels that somehow they're hard done by the act, this act is not the Constitution, and even the Constitution can be amended. So let them head straight back to the National Assembly and say, we want this provision amended. We don't like this. We don't like these powers. We don't, whatever it is. I think this is a democracy. I think that this is a very good development for our economy, for our business practices. It's a very good step for transparency. I feel that we shouldn't be emotive, and we shouldn't allow things to be taken into sort of emotional areas or start using religion to becloud the issues. It applies to all. If it applies to religious organizations, definitely it applies to both Christian ones, Muslim ones, whoever, whatever, NGOs for whatever thing they're doing. And we shouldn't heat up the polity. We shouldn't make it an emotional issue. Let's look at the facts. So what I would do is encourage Nigerians to look at those provisions, just as you brought it up. And thank you for bringing it up. I think that we shouldn't just, there's a responsibility when we speak publicly. And I hope that other voices from religious organizations and private sector, large NGOs, I hope other voices will speak out also. Because NGOs do have, and charities in general, they do have that taint of lack of enough oversight, and people are always like, we don't know what you guys are doing in there. I mean, it's not a business issue, but people always speak to the lack of transparency, especially when there are huge amounts of money involved. This is an opportunity to have greater transparency, greater levels of oversight. If the levels of oversight are not liked, the National Assembly is open to receiving feedback. Every local government, everybody has their House of Reps, their senator. Go right back there, ask for an amendment. And the final thing I would say is that when the National Assembly is working on legislation, Nigeria, please attend the public hearing. Please pay attention. Then the public domain, pay attention. Look at the provision. See where they concern you. And put input. It will only make the legislation stronger and better and more reflective. Having said that, I would want to seize this opportunity to commend the 8th and the 9th National Assembly for really demonstrating continuity in government, and just a whole host of stakeholders, Nigerian Bar Association Section of Business Law, NESG, the capital markets operators, several stakeholders worked on this act. And that is why, Sandra, you will only hear very, very few pockets of dissent concerning this particular legislation. It's been extremely well received.
All right, let's talk about another key area of corporate governance that Cama covers. Insolvency and business recovery. Now, in section 705C, the law says that to qualify as an insolvency practitioner, a person must get a certificate from the Business Recovery and Insolvency Practitioners Association of Nigeria, BRIPAN. But BRIPAN isn't...
I love you, Sandra. Now, you are going to the areas where I really want to talk to Nigerians about. First of all, Nigerians, go to the legislation. There is nothing like must. It lists about 2 or 3 ways in which you can qualify as an insolvency practitioner. And the reason is that this is quite a technical area. So BRIPAN, yes, it's a private organization, but I must commend BRIPAN. They've done a phenomenal amount of work in pushing for depth of insolvency provisions in Nigeria. They've been in the trenches, working with the National Assembly, working with the federal government to make sure they've been working on having stakeholder engagement, deepening business rescue in Nigeria to bring us to par with where other climates are. Before now, when businesses run into trouble, they had no business rescue provisions in Nigeria. The creditors sworn in and the business is cannibalized. With the hard work of BRIPAN, which I'm not even holding brief for, and a lot of other stakeholders that worked on this act, now we have business rescue provisions that buy the businesses some time. So you have time to make some arrangements, to talk with your creditors, to, figure things out so that the business doesn't have to fail. That's why it's called business rescue. Now, the act is clear. BRIPAN is one of the organizations. There are several organizations that work with the Corporate Affairs Commission.
But is it normal? Is it normal for a federal law to recognize a private organization by name and give them the power to certify a particular profession?
They don't have the power to certify. They are an organization, and that is what they do. And every other organization, Nigerian Bar Association, what is it? What is it? What are they? What are they? Are they government institutions? They are not. And are they recognized? Are they given that prominence when they're working in a particular demographic area?
But they're chartered.
Yeah, they're chartered, and BRIPAN can also become chartered.
But it's currently not chartered.
Because this is a very new area in the Nigerian climate.
Wasn't the president alarmed?
I don't think that we should. No, let me just finish this point. I don't think that we should then look at. So I saw the tweet. I saw the person that tweeted, and it was a provocative tweet. He said you have to be you have to be certified by BRIPAN. It's not true. You open the act right now. It's not true. BRIPAN is one of the avenues. And that's because that is where the expertise is. Ask how many people in the legal community or even in that business community, how many of them practice insolvency? They're just a handful. So even if you're going to ICANN, to NBA, they still will have to adjust their constitution and make provision for their professionals to be qualified to work in this area. And it's not a difficult thing to do. Within a month or less, they can have it done. So there's no monopoly here. So to take our eyes off the issue of a very good thing for the business community and to sort of make it an issue of, I don't even know who is emoting and what the essence of the conversation is. Are the business rescue provisions good for the private sector? Is Nigeria coming to the best practice, global best practice? Are we deepening insolvency practice across the board? What exactly is the issue?
Yeah, but I mean, for the sake of due process, didn't we put the cart before the horse here? Shouldn't government had chartered BRIPAN first?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Does it stop insolvency practice? BRIPAN has worked so hard, and the members of BRIPAN, which people don't have to be members of BRIPAN if they don't want to, but BRIPAN has worked so hard at deepening insolvency law practice in Nigeria. BRIPAN pro bono put competence into the drafting, into the sort of looking at, even attended conferences globally on their own money to come back with provisions to suggest to Nigeria, to suggest to the National Assembly that this is what is happening globally. I know they attended the Africa Conference of insolvency practitioners. We also sent judges from the Federal High Court, and BRIPAN members were there. They've had stakeholder engagement in Nigeria on insolvency. If you know how pedestrian Nigerian insolvency law was before all these provisions were put in, you would know, Sandra, that this is really a non-issue. Okay. It's not a monopoly. That's the first thing. It's not a monopoly. But BRIPAN has put its money and its mouth and its expertise where it matters, where the rubber meets the road. I only wish, chartered or not chartered, that a lot more private sector, organized private sector, would take their sectors with such diligence and would push and deepen. That is what this economy needs. That is what this economy needs.
Okay.
So I'm not even going to allow people to bash BRIPAN or to tell the National Assembly that why did they do this.
No, I think we should focus on what matters.
Yeah, but due
People
process,
can now choose-
also matters. And if people are
Yes.
worried that due process has been subverted in trying to do this, no matter all the good work that BRIPAN may be doing for companies and their insolvency, maybe they have a grouse, no?
No, then I don't think there's a subversion. But then, hey, that's just me. I think that anybody that has a grouse can go straight back to the National Assembly. Yeah, either go to court and challenge it, or go straight back to the National Assembly and ask for an amendment of that section. But for me, I'm excited for businesses that may run into hardship. I'm excited that they have practitioners that are passionate about this not very attractive area. You know, it's not one of the areas that is like a hot button, like hot potato.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited that there are practitioners that are willing to really put in effort to deepen that area in Nigerian law.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I put my stand. But I think that, if anybody has issues, and this goes for any section, head back to the National Assembly, ask for an amendment, or go to the court and challenge it.
Okay, let's move away from BRIPAN. Cama also requires foreign companies to register, but it gives exemptions. So, for example, a foreign company doesn't have to register if they are executing government projects or executing projects on a loan borrowed by government, or they have received an exemption of government. What's the purpose of that exemption?
Well, I wouldn't know that provision. But what I do know from working in government is that sometimes you have, like donor agencies that are implementing things for the federal government or for state government. They don't give money. What it is that they pay companies or consultants to do the work for government. So when you have those kinds of companies that are being paid for by donor agencies, for example, then there's already a whole transaction. There's already a lot going on. Like if the World Bank has a project that's implemented in Nigeria, there's already a whole lot of paperwork. They are more than registered, trust me. There's a whole load. It takes quite a while. There's a whole due process, international standards. So that may be the reason.
Okay.
But it's nothing. I doubt that it can be seen as any sort of. They wouldn't have. Let me put it this way: they wouldn't have a lesser standard. They would have a higher standard of reporting, not a lower standard.
Some critics have suggested that this exemption was put in the Cama to favor Chinese companies. What do you say to that?
No. Let me tell you, the government is extremely passionate about Nigerian businesses. That I know for a fact because that is my job. You also have the Investment Promotion Commission. So we need jobs, we need employment, we need prosperity for all. Government is under pressure to deliver for Nigerians. There's no way that we're going to now take time to make a legislation to favor Chinese companies. I mean, do you know what effort it takes to make a legislation like this come to pass? And then we're going to really sit down and the focus will be on the Chinese. When we're taking hitings every day on a looming recession, on no jobs, on a huge demographic of young people that are unemployed, really, no. I know that people don't generally think that government cares. There's a huge trust deficit. I know this because I've worked on business climate reform since 2015. But I can assure you, at least from where I sit, and I don't sit alone, we have consistently worked on ease of doing business. We're not there yet, but we have marked reforms that we have implemented for small and medium-sized enterprises, and we've been moving the needle slowly and steadily. So there's no way that we, for instance, or even under our watch, we're not even going to let any other government agency under our own nose be putting something into a provision, into a legislation that will work so hard to bring to the fore that is going to be favoring foreign nationals. It's just not going to happen.
Okay. Section 402 says that small companies don't have to undergo annual audits. And Section 394 defines a small company as one with assets valued at 60 million naira or less and an annual turnover of 120 million naira or less. Now, that's most businesses in the country. Most of the shops that we see on the roads are not doing 120 million annual turnover. If we have a situation where these companies are not being encouraged to get audited, how do we stamp out poor accounting and business practices and money laundering and other forms of corruption?
See, Sandra, the truth is that right now there's so many companies that are not performing their regulatory oversight properly. They're not. So we've looked at it, and we've looked at what would be the benefits to the economy, and we're happy to reduce the regulatory burden for all the hardworking entrepreneurs out there. We're happy to bring in electronic meetings, electronic signatures, electronic transfer of shares, virtual meetings, even virtual AGMs for public companies. We're happy to bring in single membership companies, limited liability partnerships. We're happy to bring in reduction of requirements to have a company secretary, to have auditors, because we want to reduce the cost of doing business in Nigeria. We want to remove the time it takes to do business in Nigeria. Will there be some people that will try to game the system and take advantage? Certainly, yes. When they get caught, they will face the book. They will face the law. But does that mean that we should hold back all the SMEs that will benefit from just being able to do their thing, especially our younger entrepreneurs? No. When you have a small company, okay, so I'm a single member company, and I'm going to have a company secretary and an auditor to report to myself. But we need to jumpstart this economy. We really need to expand the pie. And we need to weigh things from the light of what is the benefit vis-a-vis, will there be shortcomings? Certainly. Will there be people that try to game the system? Always. Will they get caught? Sometimes. Will we stop everybody from moving because of the few bad eggs? No. But when those bad eggs are caught, then we will be in trouble. But we're not going to hold back our entrepreneurs from having a lighter burden just because we are nervous about. Because, Sandra, even without any provisions, the people that are going to commit infractions, they are already committing infractions. Yeah. So we decided that we pushed hard for this because this argument is what has kept our laws back. So we said no. Yeah, there will be bad eggs. There will always be bad eggs. But should we penalize young entrepreneurs that are ready to go? Why should we make them get a company secretary? Why should we make them get an auditor? All these are costs. Apart from costs, there's time. They have to find a professional. They have to find someone they trust. They have to make sure they can relate. They have to wait for different, So we just thought, you know what? No. Let them go. Let them flourish.
Okay.
Let them flourish.
Now let's wrap it up because we're out of time and I'm getting signals to wrap it up.
No.
I know. There's been some criticism about Cama giving the CAC the right to suspend the trustees of an association and appoint interim managers. Could you explain why that right exists?
So it's not. I mean, this happens even in banks. Like the CBN has a similar power. It's corporate governance. You see, the thing is that it's only the guilty that need to be afraid. It is only and it takes a lot. You have to be in a real infraction. It has to be public. It has to be like everybody needs to know that there's something going on here. The CAC cannot just wake up. First of all, there's a test of reasonableness, and every lawyer knows what reasonableness means. And there's the oversight from the minister, and then there's the opportunity to go to the court. So it is balanced to make sure that now there's oversight, because previously we haven't had this. And Sandra, frankly, we've had a lot of financial misappropriation and impropriety in our business climate. So I really wouldn't be frowning on a bit more regulation and corporate governance. You saw the Institute of Directors, they just had a new business ethics code of conduct launched 2 weeks ago. This is global. We don't need to wait for Enron and Lehman Brothers to happen in Nigeria before, I'm talking business climate, but even with trustees, we don't need to, and trustees have a fiduciary duty. They have less oversight, but they have the trust of people. If we go to NGOs, if we go to churches, they have the trust of Nigerians. So those same Nigerians deserve the protection of government. And I don't think that there should be a fear, an inordinate fear of government abusing those regulations. If CAC has excesses, before long, CAC itself will be checked.
Okay.
But I don't think that before any excesses, the ink is not even dry on the legislation. And that's where a lot of focus is. But we do need the regulation. We do. We need the oversight because there's been a lot of financial impropriety in that space.
Dr. Duwele, let's leave it at that. And I would like to thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm inviting myself back. I'm coming back.
All right. We'll talk about when you want to come back because there's so much more ground to cover, honestly.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Lagos, those were your hard facts. Thank you for being a part of the show. We have this show available as a podcast. So if you just joined the show and you missed a huge chunk, don't worry. Just search for Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili and listen to this interview again. And of course, talk to me online. S. Ezekwesili on Twitter, Sandra Ezekwesili on Facebook, S. Ezekwesili on Instagram. It's also available on Facebook and YouTube if you just want to watch instead of listen to a podcast. Tomorrow, let's talk about speaking ill of the dead. 5 p.m. That's when that conversation will happen. The big 3 comes your way at 3. Those were your hard facts, Lagos. Good night.
It's okay. That is okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. Let me explain. It's okay. She off your mic.
On 99.3 Nigeria Info, your mic is always on. Let's talk.